As part of our season one theme, we are going to be talking about cases that changed the law. I love cases that set precedents and why we have it. I think that's part of the reason I want to be a lawyer, honestly. But today we are going to be talking about Kitty Genovese and why we have 911. I actually did a YouTube video on this you can go and check out. But why exactly do we have 911? You would think, though, that for the longest time we would already have it by now. But no, we did not have this until this case happened in 1964. So, who is what is the King Genovese murder? Well, this case happened in Queens, New York in 1964 and is one of the most famous murder cases to come out of New York City and into the national spotlight. What propelled it wasn't the crime of the investigation, but the press coverage that alleged the murder that had many witnesses the King who refused to come to King Genevieve's defense. This has been disproved over time, not before it became part of the accepted lore of the crime. So, what exactly is the key? Exactly happened to get this young lady murdered? Well, Genevieve was returning from work about 2:30 a.m. on March 13, 1964. When she was approached by a man with a knife, she ran toward her apartment toward the front door, and the man grabbed her and stabbed her while she screamed. A neighbor, Robert Moser, yelled from his window, "Let the girl go! Let the girl alone," causing the attacker to flee. Genevieve, seriously injured, crawled to the rear of the apartment, out of the view of possible witnesses. 10 minutes later, her attacker returned, stabbed her, raped her, and stole her money. She was then found by the neighbor Sophia Farah, who screamed for someone to call the police. Police arrived several minutes later. Genevieve died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. And the murder was listed as a brief news item in the New York Times. Can you imagine that? Like, someone just got murdered and it's just a brief news item? Like, now it's like breaking news if someone gets murdered, so. So who exactly is Kitty Genovese? Well, Catherine Susan Genovese, also primarily known as Kitty, was born in Brooklyn, New York on July 7, 1935, to her parents, Vincent and Rachel Genovese, the oldest of five children. And she was a graduate of Prospect Heights High School and was remembered as a good student who voted a class cut up, but was voted class cut up her senior year. Following her graduation in 1953, her parents witnessed a murder on the streets in which motivated the family to return to New Canaan, Connecticut. Oh, New Canaan, Connecticut. Yes, that's where we're going, Mom. Back to the episode today. Kitty Genovese, however, remained in New York, working as a secretary at an insurance company and working nights at Ev's 11 Hour, a bar in Hollis neighborhood in Queens. First as a bartender, then as a manager, prompting her to move to Queens. A decade later, Genevieve first met her girlfriend, Mary Ann Zelenko, in the Greenwich Village nightclub. Did I say that right? I'm terrible with names. The two found a second-floor apartment together in Kew Gardens in Queens, New York, and considered a peaceful, safe area to live. The investigation. So what happened exactly? Well, It was 4 a.m. when police knocked on the apartment door and informed Solanco about the stabbing and Genevieve's death. It wasn't until 7 a.m. that Detective Mitchell Singh arrived to question Solanco and was being consoled with liquor by neighbor Carl Ross, and found Ross intrusive to questioning her and arresting for disorderly conduct. Singh also knew that Genevieve's body was discovered lying on the floor, lying at the bottom of the stairs leading to Ross's apartment. Later, detectives John Carroll and Jerry Burns arrived and grilled Solanco on her relationship with Genovese. The questioning took an inappropriate turn, focusing on their sex life, and that lasted for 6 hours. Much of the questioning of the neighbors revealed a preoccupation with the gay lifestyle. Solanco was considered a suspect. So, how was her murder solved exactly? Well, later that week, police got a call from a suspect robbery. When police showed up and they found a television in the trunk of a suspect's car. The man, Winston Mosley, was arrested and taken to the station, where he was confused and started stealing appliances at the time. Mosley drove to a white Corvair and struck down Detective John Tartaglia, and was remembered that some witness to Genevieve's murder had reported seeing a white car, and that mentioned Mosley, who said nothing. Tartaglia called detectives John Carroll and Mitchell, saying they noticed scabs on Mosley's hand and discovered him of killing Genovese. Mosley replied that he had and confirmed information that only the murderer would know. So, who was the murderer of Vincent Mosley? Well, and why did he kill her? Well, Mosley was spotted Genovese at a traffic light. Wow. He sat in a parked car and then followed her home. He had been driving around Queens looking for a victim, but gave no motive for the attack. Mosley was married with 3 children and had no prior record. Later interrogations would have Mosley confessed to several other rapes and 2 other murders. Those of Annie Mae Johnson and Barbara um, Qualick. Mosley was sentenced to death on June 15, 1964. Oh, I should have done this video 4 days ago. Oh well. Um, it was reduced to a life sentence in 1967. Does New York still have the death penalty? I can't remember. Now I know I did a video with it, but I can't remember if they if they got rid of it or not. Because I know in California it's suspended, but I'm not really sure about New York though. Anyway, he would later claim that the mobster executed Genovese, and he was the only getaway driver. Mosley's son stated that he believes Mosley attacked Genovese because she yelled racial slurs at him. Mosley Mosley died on March 28, 2016, at 81 years old. So, what about the New York Times coverage on this case? Well, on March 27, 1964, the New York Times ran an article titled 37 Who Saw a Murder, but didn't call the police, because remember I said something earlier about how no one came to her aid, how that was later proved. This is what we're going to talk about that now. Well, the New York Times, with this article, it was alleging that multiple neighbors heard and witnessed her murder, but did nothing to help her. The report was prompted by a conversation between Times editor A.M. Rosenthal and Police Commissioner Michael Murphy, during which Murphy made the claim on what that the basis for the article. The newspaper followed it up the next day with analysis speaking for several experts on the psychology of why people would choose not to get involved. So later in that year, Rosnell adapted this information to a book called 38 Witnesses to Kitty Genovese's case. So, the New York Times coverage has been criticized for numerous factual errors and accused of contriving a social phenomenon for sensational purposes. I'm not a journalist, but I do know the basics of journalism. You have to make sure your facts are correct. I know that for a fact. So, what was the effect of Kitty Genovese? Well, obviously, it did change the law, and this created 911. So the murder of Kitty Genovese is credited as one of the factors that pushed the emergency 911 system into place. As the New York City officials joined in the national effort involving officials in other cities, it became the national emergency number in 1968. It's crazy that it took this murder to help push for that because used to you had to go through one person to get to this person before you could finally get to the police. So having 911 that number call created a lot of difference. Um, but yeah, okay, that is it for today's episode. I will see y'all next week, and y'all have a great day.